Hello and welcome to the Messages and Methods Livecast Live 2.0 live stream podcast, hosted by Encore entrepreneurs Shelley, Carney, and Toby, Younis. We inspire excitement for content creation and marketing your brand and business while answering all your technology and digital marketing questions. We love to help you, our content creator friends, with actionable tips to land more clients, nurture leads, and gain trust as an expert in your industry. Chat with Shelley and Toby live every Thursday on YouTube or Facebook. Hello and welcome to Messages and Methods. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Younis.
And today we're going to be talking about listening to your audience to create better content. As a content creator, it's important that we create content that people want to watch and consume. And the best way to do that is to just get started and then start to perfect it and then ask your audience, what do you want to see?
And you can do this either passively, you can review chat room comments, or you can do it actively. And you could schedule events specifically for the purpose of getting more information about what your audience thinks about you and your programming.
So we're going to go over the 5 keys to listening to your audience to create better content. So number 1, why should we listen to our audience? Well, we want to tap into the needs of our viewers, because if they give us input, feedback, and then we use that feedback in maybe they ask us for something specific. I want to see more content where you're going out into New Mexico and filming the outdoors, and we do that the very next day, then those people know that we listen to them and we care about their opinions. So that increases their loyalty to that channel and to us, which can lead to sales and an increase in referrals. They may recommend our channel, our content, or whatever it is that we do to their friends and family because they're enjoying it so much. And they can also say, I asked for them to go do this and they did this. Look at it, how great it is. Look at my idea and how great it turned out for them. So it increases that loyalty and leads to sales and referrals.
Anytime you come in contact with your viewers, you are coming in contact with prospective customers as well. What's important about this initial contact with your viewers is that it might be the starting point for building a more expansive relationship with them. And that's why you should invest a little bit of time in looking at these alternatives that Shelley has talked about as a necessary part of listening to your audience. So the nice thing about that is they're already there. You're not prospecting here. Your audience already exists. You know who you're talking to, and they know who they're listening to.
So what is the process for deciding what content you're going to be creating and sharing? Number 1, of course, is to define your target audience. Who do you want in your audience? Maybe you want to speak to encore entrepreneurs, people of a certain age, in the retirement years, people who are interested in traveling and going outdoors and seeing the sights, something like that. So define who that is that you want to talk to. Then begin to research the topics that you believe that audience would be most interested in learning about, and something that you love to learn about as well, so that you can share that knowledge with them. Present that content weekly so that you continue to get good practice at presenting the content, creating the content, gathering it up, and sharing it out. And people will begin to know that you're showing up weekly, and they'll show up weekly. Then ask for feedback and get that feedback and find out, do you like this? Do you want more of it? Do you not like it? What else would you like to see? And that's going to help to guide you in the right direction. And then you want to also check your analytics and make sure that you are doing the best that you can to attract an audience.
So one of the things that surrounds this process of content selection is the idea that you should be as excited about producing your content as your audience is about watching your content. Don't try to fool yourself into believing that you can produce content that is what's the word, uh, the same as everyone else, right? You're modeling yourself after other content producers. You have to produce the content that's most exciting to you in order for your audience to believe that it becomes exciting for them as they live vicariously through your exploits.
Exploits.
I like exploits.
So, how do we gather feedback? There are several different methods. And this is the 5 keys, but then I kind of give you a bonus key. Number one, we start with a survey. That's just asking people to fill out a form about what they like and don't like and what works for them. Or you can do it through the live chat. If you're doing a live stream, just ask people, what do you like? And get that feedback in the live chat. You can get feedback through email by sending out questions and having people email you back. You can use a focus group. You can do social listening and analytics. Social listening and analytics are kind of off by themselves because you're not actually talking directly to people. You're kind of just reading their comments, or you're looking at how many people showed up to watch a video and at what point did most people leave the video and that sort of thing, to analyze the content in that way where without actually speaking one-on-one with people.
Off topic, I just noticed that your Bitmoji Shelley has AGK's colors on.
That's
Is that
right.
intentional?
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And the
that's right.
shoes, look at the shoes.
Nice shoes. Nice shoes. So, one of the things that Shelley mentioned is your ability to what back in the olden days we used to call open source intelligence collection. And that is using what's out there from Google search to YouTube to Pinterest to find out what your audience is looking at and thinking about in order to put your whatever communication you have with them and get more detailed information from them in context. So, what you'd like to hear from your audience is something similar to, at least related to, what you've discovered as a result of your open source intelligence collection. Social listening and analytics is what Shelley refers to it. It's here, but it requires you doing that in order to give everything else some sense of context.
That's right. So let's start with a survey. You can use a Google survey or a Google form, and that's free. You don't have to pay anything for that. Or you could sign up for Survey Monkey. They have a free level. You can try that. There's a lot of different products out there that you can use to create a survey or create just a form that people can fill out and then send them to that by promoting it, right? So if you're doing a live show, you can say, please go fill out my survey, and it's only 3 questions, and and we're going to take it down on such and such a day. So set a deadline for them to go answer that survey so that you can get started on analyzing that information, and then offer an incentive to them to complete it. So you could say, you know what, if you answer this survey, then I'm going to give you a free download, or I'm going to, whatever it is that you can offer them. If it's really an important one and it's valuable to you, you could even offer them, like, I'll give you a $10 Amazon gift card, or we'll have a drawing for a $50 gift card from all the people who answer, something like that, some kind of an incentive to get people to feel like, okay, well, I'll spend the 5 minutes to go answer this survey so that I have, so that I can get this incentive.
So sometimes it doesn't necessarily take an incentive for them to have to complete a survey because it's in their best interest. And I'll give you 2 examples. Every time I shop at Walmart, they know me well enough, the cards that I use, etc. They have my email address because I'm a Walmart customer shopper thing. And I get an email.
Shopper.
Yeah, I get an email afterwards. It says, take our survey and enter. You'll be entered into the opportunity to win $1,000 if you take our survey. And it's $1,000 worth of shopping at Walmart. Of course, it's not cash. And I find that I find it almost offensive. Like, you know, I give you my money, basically. You give me some product, you make a profit, you're happy, I'm happy. Yes, there are things that make me mad, but it's not worth me getting into a survey. And besides, when I take your survey, you never ask me the right questions anyway, right? They're questions that are very self-serving.
Mm.
On the other hand, and I'm going to get here's the counter example. Shelley and I ran a program on the Force Fen Treasure. Many of you already know this for several years. And after the first year, we decided one of the things that we wanted to do was find out what people thought, not only about the content that we were producing, but what they thought about the treasure hunt, you know, how they saw it, their opinions on the matter. And I think the first one of those surveys had 350 or so responses. And it grew every year after that to the extent that it became so credible a survey, we were being contacted by journalists to ask them. To ask us if we would share the survey information with them. Of course, we did. We would have a show after the survey was completed. We'd keep the survey active for 30 years. We'd promote it on every one of our programs, and then at the end, I said 30 years. I meant 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, we'd have a show where we shared that research with them. The deal that we had with them is if you wanted a copy of the survey to be sent to you as soon as it's completed so that you can analyze it, we would send you a copy of the survey as well as the data we collected, independent of any personal information. And all you had to do was the last question was, would you like a copy of the survey? Please provide your email. So it was completely optional. I would say about half the respondents would say that they wanted the email, and we didn't do anything else. We didn't add it to our email list. There was a second question: would you like us to add you to our email list if you fill in the above request for email address? And about half of them would say yes. And we started using it to build email. But what was important is not only were we learning about our clients, we were learning about the market and what drove the markets and what people's opinions were. And what was fun about it is it kind of reinforced things that we already knew. Number one, it reinforced the fact that the significant majority of our audience was male versus female, and that a significant majority of our audience was 46 and over, which told us how to characterize our content, where we weren't promoting ourselves to the 18 to 25 pop age group. We had people in our age group that were interested in the content that we're producing. So we made sure that we satisfied their needs, right? In producing our content. So that was one of the things and we only did it once a year, but it was one of the things that drove our content development for the following year, the year that followed the survey. And it was one of the better things that we did on that channel. Um, so there's ways to use these things, a survey especially, that not only provides you information about your audience, but information about how your audience views you. And when you structure it, and all we did is, as Shelley suggested before, was we used a Google form. And a Google form has a survey feature on it, and it collects all the data. It puts it in a spreadsheet for you if you want to manipulate the data and to look at it in other ways. But I think every year we would make one or two small improvements in the survey. Like we decided to add Yellowstone National Park as a location independent of the four search states, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. We decided to add Yellowstone as its own kind of independent search area just to see what people thought. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed looking at the data and I enjoyed sharing it with our audience. And I think the audience was surprised to see how the level of quality. It was credible. When you have that many respondents in a single survey, where your audience isn't that big, it's not hundreds of thousands of people, it's thousands of people, and you get 300 to 400, sometimes 500 responses. That's a significant response set. And you can actually make judgments on how your programming is going to go from there. Surveys are a very, very good tool to get this information out.
Yeah, and in that particular case, the people who were answering the survey were also very interested in the final results.
Yeah.
So that last thing on the banner, it should be actually course.livecast.live rather than course.educate.
I'm going to change that while you're talking, okay?
So. All right. So another way to gather information is through your live chat. So if you're doing a live stream every week, like we do, showing up weekly and promoting people to show up live to ask questions and share their feedback, then you encourage their engagement, ask them to write into the chat what they're thinking, what they want to know more about. And that is another way for you to get that information from the people who are actually watching your content. So they have already seen what you're producing, they know what they like, they know they want what they want more of, and they can tell you that in the live chat. They can tell you that on your video comments. They can comment on the platform, the social media platform where your video is streaming. So there's a lot of ways that they can easily share their opinion, just writing into the chat or into the comments. And that is a very frictionless way for them to engage with you and let you know, I would like to see more of this. I have a question about that. And then you can direct your content to fit their needs. And you want to do that for the people who are showing up for you, right? They're there, they care about this, they want to learn from you. They have a great interest in your topic. So you definitely want to make sure you pay attention to what they're saying and call them out and say, thank you so much, and give their name and say, I'm definitely going to be talking about that. And then follow through. Follow through on those comments. And that's the important part of building that loyal audience.
One of the features that's beneficial to this in StreamYard is that when you get a comment, and I just posted an example, is you can put that comment up on the screen. And not only are you using it as a method for engaging the person that asked the question in the chat, but you're also highlighting that this question is an important one to the other members of the audience. And what you'll see invariably is follow-ups like, oh, I saw that she asked this question. I'd like to ask this question related to that. So it starts a process of a kind of real-time engagement that as you analyze afterwards, you get more sense of what your audience is thinking about. And indirectly, they're not directly asking you to do this, but when they talk about these things, they are indirectly asking you to do something or to change something. That's why it becomes so important.
Yeah. The next one is feedback through email. This is something that we have always encouraged our viewers to email us. We put our email everywhere. support@agkmedia.studio. And we have it on the crawl on all of our videos. We have it in all of the description boxes. We have it on our social media. We have it everywhere so that people can easily reach out to us by email and ask questions or offer their opinions. And people do that, and we pay attention to it. Now, when people do give you that feedback, maybe you are sending them to a survey in an email newsletter, say, please go fill this out. And you're asking for specific information. Here's a question, here's a question, here's a question, and they answer those. You want to follow through on that by reading it and responding to those people who have given you their input. Thank you for your input. It means a lot to me, and I'm going to incorporate your ideas in this manner. If you let them know how you're going to use their advice, they're much more likely to continue giving you their advice in the future. They feel valued, they feel heard, so they'll keep coming back to you.
The email, giving them the opportunity to reach out through email also means that if you have people that aren't comfortable with the live chat,
or they can't show up at that time.
Right. That was
reason.
the other point I was going to make. So if they're not comfortable with the live chat because they just want to lurk, or they don't see your video until afterwards, rather than making a comment on the video, they can keep it private and send you an email. And we don't have any problem. We get very productive emails. There's sometimes where we look at them and we go like, that's not something that we're interested in, or that's not important to our audience. And that's kind of the measurement. But we do get a lot of emails from regular viewers who give us advice on what they think we should be doing. And so we have a couple that are very blunt about it. And I'm always amazed at kind of how blunt they are. And at first I was kind of offended, like, how is this your business? And then I realized, no, they're just trying to give us information that we can use to improve the quality of our content. And that's how you have to look at it. And now you're going to get some that's kind of offhanded criticism. It's not constructive criticism, it's just whining. And that's okay. You still make that email address available to all your viewers so that they can engage with you at their own time and with their own level of intensity, whatever that is. But we have some we have some very sophisticated viewers who, when they see us talking about something, we get an email that says, "No, we want you to know that, you know, don't go away." But sometimes we'll get people who are like, "We're thinking about stuff and we need to know what to do with our lives." And the first fear that we get in response with emails is, "Look, just whatever you do, don't leave." Right? The community wants to see you figure out to do something. If you want to do a clown show, fine, but just don't leave. So it's exciting to get that kind of response from our audience because
Yeah,
it says there's other things they like about us than just we're on Wednesday evenings and Thursday afternoons.
that's right. Another way to gather information is through a focus group. I'm going to quickly cover this because Toby has a lot more experience with focus groups and running them than I do. But what you can do as a small business, the way we are, is you can have a private Zoom group invitation go out through your email. This is what we did. We also talked about it on the live stream and let people know this is coming. Look for the invitation. And then include everyone on your email list. Say everyone's invited and it's going to be a private Zoom. It's not going to go out on, or be recorded or anything like that. And then have specific questions that you're going to ask them and then follow up with them. If you're going to use their suggestion, send them an email or, in some way call them out on during the show and say, Lorraine gave us some really great feedback and we're going to follow through on that. And we're going to do it because we believe Lorraine gave a lot of really good information, a lot of good ideas, and she's been with us for a really long time, so she knows. So follow up in some way by uplifting that person who gave you that feedback.
So, as many of you know, I spent a career in Washington, D.C., first as an employee of the federal government, the National Security Agency, and then as an independent contractor. But my business, and I was independent, I was a sole proprietor. My business evolved over the years. So I started out as an independent contractor. And then, as businesses that I would work with, notice that's what I do, they wanted advice on marketing to other businesses. And then later on, that transitioned into larger and larger technical businesses were moving into the Washington area, establishing offices, Microsoft, Oracle, Sybase. I could just go off and name them. And they were moving some of their employees or hiring, building a new business in Washington specifically to sell to the federal government. So that changed some consulting that I did. Rather than as an independent contractor, suddenly I was consulting to businesses that wanted to do business with the government. And that evolved eventually into a very specific niche of advising businesses, private businesses, how to do business with the intelligence community, which is a whole different branch. They have a whole different set of regulations. As a result, I had the opportunity to work with some big companies like Oracle and Microsoft, et cetera. And one of the things that they wanted to do was wanted to know was how do we engage with the federal government? And this was, of course, pre-Zoom and all these other products that provided us the expansive video conferencing capabilities that we have today. Now, they did come on board the late 90s or early 2000s, but they were rather archaic. They were primitive in some ways. So it didn't make for good focus groups. But I discovered that one of the things that government employees liked was getting out of the office and going someplace where they could speak their minds. And so, to some degree, the first thing that I would have my client, who was who was a private business, corporation, do was establish a room specifically for doing focus group meetings. And I was always surprised at how cooperative they were. So give us the design. Now you got to remember, as a consultant, I'm making income from just advising them on what to do with these things, and then I'm helping to build focus group meeting rooms with one-way mirrors and things like this. And then I realized, well, this is an opportunity for as these customers, because government customers are very sensitive to being sold to. They don't like it because they have rules that prevent them from having that direct sales contact. So I developed a methodology for inviting them to a focus group that was very much related to something that was important to federal government employees, not necessarily the contractors, but the federal government employees. Bring them in. I realized that you can't offer them money. You can't say, I'll give you $25, you come in, because that's against the law. You can't do that to a government employee. But if you have a nice, breakfast, what do they call it? Continental breakfast spread, that's okay. Because what you do is you put an empty basket there, and they have the opportunity to add a $1 or $5 or $10. And that way it's not a gift. They're actually paying for their breakfast. But it was also an opportunity during that period to bring in some of the sales representatives that the way they broke up their market segments was by agency. So if there were employees from the Department of Agriculture, the sales manager and sales rep responsible for the Department of Agriculture would spend some time with breakfast at them, just getting to know each other, sharing some business cards and things like that. But what was most important was my responsibility to engage these folks in conversation, because again, it's very hard to get these government employees to talk about what they're experiencing, what they're doing. And what I discovered is that you just need to give them the time. So like all interviews, you'd ask open-ended questions. They weren't survey questions like what percentage of you do this. They were open-ended questions that let them talk about and go around the room. And what was amazing to me is the variety of opinions that were expressed. One person would be perfectly okay with this strategy, and there would be a person across the table from them saying, I would never do anything like that, and it was always in a very polite way, they would refer to themselves as Mr. This and Mr. or Mrs. That or Miss That. And, but they would be open and honest with you. And at the same time, there was a camera behind that one-way mirror that was filming them. And we told them that there was, just for research purposes, etc. And the amount of information that you got was based on the way that you asked the questions and what direction you took in either making them comfortable or uncomfortable. The benefit that you have nowadays is you don't have to have a special room. You don't have to have a one-way mirror. You don't have to have a camera set up. You can invite them. They don't have to leave the comfort of their desk or their at home or at the office. And they can have that conversation with other people listening. If you ask permission to record it, you can record it on the screen. So there's no cameras set up anyplace. And you get a wealth of knowledge and understanding from them about how they see you. Focus groups to me, because it takes a concerned viewer, in our case, a concerned customer, to show up at that focus group. If people don't show up at your focus group requests, you can take that one of two ways. Either what you're doing is absolutely over the top wrong, or over the top right. Everybody's happy with what you're doing. I mean, you can take it in one of two ways. That shouldn't prevent you from having focus group meetings, because a focus group meeting is not only an opportunity for you to collect additional intelligence, and forgive me for using that word because that's what it is. You're collecting face-to-face human intelligence, is what it's called in our industry. Human. You're collecting intelligence from the people that you're serving, however you're doing it, whether it's having a program like this or whether you're selling software to the federal government via federal government contracts. So they're an important part of what you do, an important part of establishing contact, an important part of getting them even further to like you, because when we have this one situation, Shelley and I can talk all afternoon here. And if you don't put anything in the chat, then we don't have the benefit of your conversation. And that's kind of, it's almost a one-way medium with the exception of the chat. And that's not, to me, that's not two-way. You can use it that way, but it's not having a face-to-face conversation with someone in a focus group with other people around who are stimulated by the conversation and have their own things to say about it. And you give everyone a chance to talk. And you'll learn as you just watch their faces, whether they have something to say or not. And you manage it. You don't allow them to talk over each other. You don't allow them to get into arguments. It's your responsibility to make sure that the focus group, the time spent in a focus group, is productive for everyone in that focus group. Everyone that attends, the people who you're working for in terms of your customer, if you have one like I used to, But I love focus groups. I think they're the best thing in the world because I get to ask questions and they have no problem answering those questions.
One of the things that's unique about being a content creator who's doing weekly shows like we do is sometimes people see us over the years and they think of us as kind of stars or celebrities, very minor celebrities, but celebrities. So to be invited to speak with us is a privilege to them or an honor, something that they find to be you know an exciting proposition. So they'll show up just to spend time with you if they have gotten to know you from live videos.
And neither of us think of ourselves in that way. We never have. But it's always a surprise and so therefore it is always a surprise to us when people say, I'm just happy to be in the same room, meaning the Zoom room, of
Mhm.
course, with you guys. You're so amazing, et cetera, et cetera. And to us, I don't want to say that it's embarrassing. We don't want it to be embarrassing for either one of us. We're always surprised by it. Like, man, we're just kind of average guys. I put on my pants 2 legs at a time, like everybody. Well, no, one. What's that saying?
I don't know. You never wear pants, so
Oh, okay. You never wear
you don't see the bottom half. What do you know?
focus
And people
groups.
on the podcast, they don't know if you even get
That's
anything
yeah. If you got
anything
anything,
on.
we could be naked here to the people in the
Who would know? Who
podcast. Who would
knows?
know?
Social listening. What is social listening? Well, you can go to forums like Reddit or other places where people are commenting on things that is something that you're talking about. So if your content centers around, um, I don't know, watermelon, you could go to a forum where people talk about watermelon and see what they have to say about it. Do they like it? What kind do they like? And just get all the research in that way by just reading what they're saying. And then maybe asking a question every now and then to get more specific about that information. Then there's social media posts. You can put up a post and ask a question, do a poll. There's, all the platforms offer you that ability to do a poll, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You can put up a poll and ask people's opinion on something and get their engagement on that. You can follow hashtags. So if there's a specific hashtag that you use a lot, like we use content marketing a lot, we could follow that hashtag, uh, content marketing, and then we could go look at different things that are being said about it and get that information and compile that information so that we know here's where people what the trends are, here's what people are talking about, here's what people are asking questions about, here's what people want to know. Follow those hashtags, look for engagement. So if you're putting up a poll and nobody's answering it, or if you're putting up a post and it gets no engagement, then people aren't interested in that, or it's the way that you said it wasn't interesting to them. So you want to focus on posts, videos, any kind of content that you put out that gets the most engagement. You want to really focus on why did people engage with that? What was it about that? How can I expand on that to get more engagement in the future from this particular topic? And then post frequently, right? You want to post at least a couple times a week. A couple times a day is even better if you want to go that route. Um, and just see what that's, the more frequently you post, the more different things you post, the more you can figure out who's engaging with what kind of posts.
Don't forget, and Shelley uses these really, really well. She uses products that will generate posts for her on the different platforms like Facebook, Instagram, etc. But again, social listening to me is a precursor to what is referred to as social engineering, and social engineering is the actions you take to solidify, to increase the quality of the relationship between you and your viewers. Social listening, from as I said earlier, back in the olden days, was open source intelligence collection. So what you're doing is you're looking at all these places where your your audience or your prospective audience gathers to talk with one another, and you're basically looking at it to see what information you can get about it, you can get out of it that enables you to improve the quality and integrity of your content. So don't be embarrassed about it. The social media is out there for a reason, and people have gotten progressively more confident in what they're posting to social media, sometimes to their own detriment, of course. But social media is a good tool for you to be able to use in order to find out about your either prospective or active market.
Yes. And lastly, we have analytics. Now, all of your social platforms are going to offer some kind of analytics. YouTube, your podcast host, we use Anchor. They'll have your analytics on your podcast. LinkedIn has analytics if you're doing a newsletter, if you have a company page. A website offers you analytics most of the time. WordPress blog will offer you analytics. So when you have analytics to look at them and make some determinations about what content is working well, statistically, what people are liking, what people are, reading and showing up for and sharing. That's all important. Keep a spreadsheet with important metrics that you're going to be measuring. So if you want to grow your audience specifically on YouTube, keep a spreadsheet of, what content is working well, when people subscribed or when they unsubscribed, when they dropped off the video, different things like that that are going to inform you on making those content decisions. Analyze and improve your content at least quarterly using key performance indicators. That's up to you to decide what are your key performance indicators. What indicates to you that you are doing well, that your content is doing well? Is it the number of downloads? Is it the number of subscribers? What is it that you want to see growing? And focus on those numbers and do that at least quarterly to make sure that you're staying on track with keeping your content as good as you can make it.
And remember, you have effectively a relationship that extends out one way to your customers because you're that focal point, and in the other way to the platform. So many of the platforms provide you analytical information that tells you how you're doing with your relationship with them. To me, so Shelley has talked to this point. We've both talked to this point about the relationship between you and your prospective viewer or prospective viewer. One of the one that's important to me is how's my relationship in this case with YouTube. And one of the things that I look at to determine my relationship with YouTube is something called impressions. And I can tell how YouTube feels about what we're doing based on the number of impressions it's given to us. And basically, an impression is YouTube has shown our content, not the actual content, but the thumbnail and the description and the title to someone else this many times in the last month. Well, in one case, you could have 70,000 when at the peak of our A Gypsy's Kiss treasure hunt show, we were getting 1.5 million impressions a month from YouTube. Now that sounds like a lot, but there are content creators that are doing much better than that. And then as we started playing around with where we're going, that started falling. We had to find out exactly what YouTube likes about what we're saying. And that number of impressions pretty much will tell you because it's all based upon what they refer to, what everybody now refers to. Like 2 years ago, this wasn't a word, but suddenly now it is the algorithm. And the algorithm is the set of instructions inside some computer someplace that determines what you like seeing. And YouTube number of impressions says you fit into that model really, really well. And if you have low impressions, you better think of something else to get them. And it could be as simple as changing your thumbnails, titles, and description to be more in line with what YouTube expects. But what YouTube expects and what most of the other social media platforms expect is that you are somehow in line with their and I'm going to qualify this. So you are in line with their perceptions of what the major topics that are being discussed today. So if today the major topic is the U.S. bartering with Russia to trade some of our Russian prisoners for their American prisoners, that's the topic. If you're doing something related to that, you go up higher in the algorithm, more impressions higher up in the algorithm. So what they're looking for people that are talking about things that are interesting to other people at that exact moment in time.
Yeah. And when you talk about trending topics, they're going to be able to show it to more people
Right.
because more people are interested in what's trending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't want to do this all the time. You don't want to fool them because they can tell if you fool them. But sometimes it's just a matter of a really good thumbnail and a really good title and a really good description, because that's what the viewer sees when they first see something that YouTube has given to them. So make sure that there is some sense of trend in what you're doing in those areas, in order to get the, and I'm talking about YouTube, but this is true for all the platforms, have their own algorithm based on trending topics. And for the people on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube that become influencers, what they have mastered is not only the platform, how to use the platform, but they've mastered the idea that whatever they talk about is perfectly in line with what YouTube imagines needs to be talked about based on the other side of that research. Because they're constantly looking at what people are talking about, what the news is, what people are talking about, where the interest is, and what you're doing about it. So that's the best way to get in line with all of that.
So we published a book on Amazon, and it's called Livecast Life, the Content Creator Lifestyle. Part of that lifestyle is getting feedback from your audience and using it to improve your content. And you can get that book at book.livecast.life. It's a wonderful book full of all of our experience and trials and tribulations of live casting. So check that out if that's something that you wanted to get into, is that content creator lifestyle.
So, and more importantly, it's not only the trials and tribulations of live casting, it's how to succeed at it, overcome those trials and tribulations, and get really good at it, because we think we're really good at what we do.
Mm-hmm. And in case in point, over the years, we've honed down our system to 2 infographics. One is the content consistency framework, and the other is the content consistency schedule. And I've put those together in one download that you can get at framework.agkmedia.studio. It's completely free.
I know I have the same problem.
And you can print it out, put it up on your wall, and follow that framework and that schedule until it becomes a habit. And then you are just like a content creator master, because it's just following that simple formula.
And Shelley has done a really good job of encapsulating, summarizing those 2 components of the process, the framework and the schedule, so that, like she says, you can put it up on your wall or magnetic whiteboard or whatever, and you can get a good sense of what needs to be done without reading books or doing it. If you have to read the books, if you want to know where we start and how we get through a week, up to and including publishing books, well, that's then you want to go to the book. But if you have a good sense of what you want to do, you have a channel, you're trying to figure out what to do to make the channel better, these 2 documents, these infographics that Shelley has produced, is a really good way to get you the visibility and credibility that you need in order to grow your channel, whether it's a YouTube channel, an Anchor FM podcast, or a WordPress blog.
That's right. And sign up for our email list. If you do, you'll get weekly personalized updates. You finish that.
So when you do sign up for our email, you get not only a lot of information in the form of weekly personalized updates, but you'll have helpful information, because what we do is at the bottom of the email, we give you a couple of items that we found in interesting reading on the topic that we're interested in that particular week. You get a lot of behind the scene photos, not only of the work that we're doing at any time, but there's a lot of grandbaby pictures, because I have a lot of grandbabies to take pictures.
Not so they annoy you.
Yeah, you won't be annoyed by them. They're just cute situations that I find myself in. As a matter of fact, we're going to get some more, because mid-August I'm heading out to the East Coast again to visit the other.
This week maybe we'll have the Elephant Butte in there.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of good pictures from our Elephant Butte trip. You do get free offers all the time, and you get information about what we're doing and where to get more information about how to get in touch with us. In addition to that, you get a link to our store on Amazon, where we share all the equipment that we use, so that you have a good idea of where to get it. You don't have to pay extra for buying it off Amazon. We actually get a commission if you buy something. But what's more important is literally it's a list that describes every component that's in this studio. and you'll know that we picked it because we use it, and not just used it and tried it. It's in this studio and it remains here, and we see it every time we come into this studio.
That's right. That's all we have for today for the 5 keys to listening to your audience to create better content. We hope that this information was helpful to you. We do ask for your feedback. Please email us at support@agkmedia.studio if you have ideas on how to improve our content, if you have questions that we could answer for you in a future show, if you have a situation going on that you would need advice for, if you have some questions about technology or equipment that you want to have in your home. There's any number of things that we are happy to speak with you about, and just reach out to us, and we would love to hear from you anytime.
And for a different take on what we do, join us on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. in News and Views. We're starting a series on what we're referring to as a 1,000-year drought. The Western states have been in a drought for the last 21 years, and the last time that happened was about 1,000 years ago. And I can tell you all about, if you're interested, and probably I could bore you to death on the topic of what happened 1,000 years ago when we had a very similar drought.
Because
Wednesdays,
it's just that old.
because I was there. Wednesdays, 7 p.m., News and Views. Join us for the conversation. Next week, we'll start taking calls because we discovered there's a lot of people who this is affecting other than just us. But we're traveling again. We're going into the outdoors. This last week, we were at Elephant Butte Dam, surveying the damage that's been done in Elephant Butte, not only to the dam and the lake, but to the surrounding community. So we're going to do that next week up around the Rio Chama. There's a couple of locations up there that we're going to take a look at. So join us on Wednesday night for more information on the 1,000-year drought.
That's right. Thank you so much for being here with us today for Messages and Methods, and we will see you again next week. Thank you for joining Messages and Methods Livecast Live 2.0, hosted by Shelley, Carney, and Toby Younis. Please subscribe and leave a comment or question, and we'll consider your ideas for future shows. Share this podcast with your family and friends so they can learn about current digital marketing practices too. Check the show notes for links and resources, and please come back again next week.